The 32 men who unlocked Omaha Beach, the untold story of heroism on D-Day. On the morning of June 6, 1944, the beaches of Normandy became the scene of one of the most pivotal battles in history. Among the waves of soldiers who landed that day, a small group of 32 men from the U.S. 1st Infantry Division, known as E Company of the 16th Infantry Regiment, faced almost certain death as they disembarked from their landing craft onto Omaha Beach. Their mission was to breach the formidable defenses of Hitler's Atlantic Wall and pave the way for the thousands of troops who would follow. This is the story of their courage, determination, and the sacrifices they made to unlock Omaha Beach. The lead up to D-Day, planning the invasion. The decision to invade Normandy, codenamed Operation Overlord, was made after extensive deliberations among Allied commanders. The beaches chosen for the landings, Sword, Juneau, Gold, Utah, and Omaha, were heavily defended, but Omaha Beach presented a particularly daunting challenge. Stretching 3.7 miles along the coast, Omaha was bordered by high bluffs that provided German defenders with a perfect vantage point to repel the invasion. The Germans had fortified Omaha Beach with a network of defensive positions known as Widerstandsnester, resistance nests, which included concrete pillboxes, machine gun emplacements, anti-tank guns, and minefields. These positions were strategically placed to cover the natural inlets, or draws, that the Allies would need to secure in order to move inland. The defenders were well prepared and heavily armed, with clear fields of fire across the open beach. For the men of E Company, their objective was to land on easy red sector of Omaha Beach, advance up the E1 draw into Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer, and neutralize the enemy defenses along the way. This draw was crucial, as it provided one of the few routes off the beach that did not require scaling the steep bluffs. Success was essential for the overall success of the invasion. The landing into the maelstrom. Shortly after 6:30 a.m., the first wave of landing craft approached Omaha Beach under a hail of German gunfire. The men of E Company, led by 29-year-old Second Lieutenant John Spaulding, were among them. As their Higgins boat neared the shore, it was struck by machine gun and mortar fire, sending shrapnel flying through the air and men ducking for cover. The ramp dropped, and Spaulding's men were greeted by the chaos of battle. What the men didn't realize immediately was that they had landed on a sandbar, not the beach itself. This miscalculation forced them to wade through deep water, struggling to keep their weapons and equipment above the waves as they made their way to shore. The sea was cold, and many of the men, already seasick from the rough crossing, were disoriented and exhausted by the time they reached the beach. Despite these obstacles, the men of E Company pressed forward. They quickly spread out in a V formation, trying to avoid the concentrated fire from the German positions. The beach was littered with obstacles, mines, steel hedgehogs, and barbed wire, that made every step treacherous. Sergeant Philip Streising, a veteran of campaigns in North Africa and Sicily, led the way, his experience and leadership proving invaluable as the men navigated the deadly terrain. The first breach. Overcoming the defenses. The initial resistance the men encountered was less intense than expected, partly because they had landed in a relatively weak spot between two heavily fortified positions, WN-62 and WN-64. However, this was little consolation, as they soon found themselves under fire from machine guns and mortars positioned on the bluffs overlooking the beach. The advance was slow and painful, with every step forward met with lethal opposition. As the men neared the Roman ruins, a K landmark identified by Allied planners, they found themselves pinned down by sniper fire. It was here that Sergeant Raimundo was killed by a sniper's bullet as he attempted to move towards a group of beleaguered comrades. His death was a stark reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. Taking stock of the situation, Lieutenant Spaulding and Sergeant Streising realized they had no choice but to continue their advance. With their objective still ahead, they pushed on, determined to breach the German defenses. The first major obstacle was a section of barbed wire that blocked their path. Staff Sergeant Colwell, using a Bangalore torpedo, blew a hole in the wire, allowing the men to advance up the bluffs. The assault on the bluffs. A grueling climb. The climb up the bluffs was one of the most harrowing experiences of the day. The men had to contend with steep, uneven terrain, landmines, and constant enemy fire. Despite these challenges, they advanced slowly but steadily, using natural cover to shield themselves from the German gunners. As they neared the top of the bluffs, the men encountered a stubborn German machine gun position that had already inflicted heavy casualties. Sergeant Biscoe, who had been urging caution due to the presence of mines, was killed as the men tried to neutralize the position. PFC Curley and Sergeant Phelps were also wounded in the attempt. Finally, after several unsuccessful attempts, the men rushed the machine gunner, capturing him and securing the position. The capture of this machine gun nest marked a turning point in the assault. With the immediate threat neutralized, the men were able to continue their advance. Sergeant Clarence Coulson led the way, firing a BR, Browning automatic rifle, from the hip as he moved forward. His bravery and determination were instrumental in reaching the summit of the bluffs. The push, inland, securing the draw. With the bluffs secured, the men of E Company faced the task of securing the E1 draw and pushing inland. The draw was heavily defended, with a trench system and a pillbox overlooking the area. Coulson, using the trench for cover, managed to approach the pillbox from behind and neutralize the threat by firing into the gunner's slot. His actions opened the way for the rest of the company to advance. As the men moved inland, they encountered more resistance, but the capture of the bluffs had shifted the momentum in their favor. Reinforcements from G Company, 16th Infantry Regiment, soon arrived, and together they began to push the Germans back. The capture of the E1 draw was a significant achievement, as it allowed tanks and other vehicles to move off the beach and support the infantry. The aftermath. A hard-fought victory. By the end of D-Day, the men of E Company had achieved their objective, but at a high cost. Of the 32 men who landed that morning, only 22 survived, with several of them wounded. The bravery and determination they displayed were instrumental in the success of the invasion, but their sacrifices were a stark reminder of the horrors of war. The actions of Spaulding, Streising, Coulson, and their comrades were not isolated incidents. Across Omaha Beach, other units faced similar challenges and displayed the same courage in overcoming them. By the end of the day, the Allies had secured a tenuous foothold on the Normandy coast, but the battle for Europe was far from over. The legacy of the 32 men. The story of the 32 men who unlocked Omaha Beach is a testament to the courage and determination of the Allied forces on D-Day. Their actions helped pave the way for the liberation of France and the eventual defeat of Nazi Germany. In the years since the war, their bravery has been honored in countless books, documentaries, and memorials. For many of the survivors, the memories of that day remained with them for the rest of their lives. Lieutenant John Spaulding and Sergeant Philip Streising, both of whom survived the war, struggled with the psychological scars of combat. Streising, in particular, was haunted by his experiences, and his tragic death by suicide in 1958 underscored the lasting impact of the war on those who fought it. Today, the bluffs of Omaha Beach stand as a silent testament to the bravery of the men who scaled them on June 6, 1944. The sacrifices of the 32 men of E Company and the thousands of others who fought alongside them ensured the success of the D-Day invasion and helped bring an end to one of the darkest chapters in human history. Their legacy is one of courage, determination, and the unwavering spirit of those who fight for freedom.